Well, there was a bombshell that came down in terms of what happened to Mr. Silver, beginning the criminal process for him. The question is the political fallout here, and will there be a resignation? Where will this investigation potentially expand to? For more on that, let me bring Andrew in. Andrew, it was interesting because a lot of people, we even had some lawmakers that were scheduled. Some maybe there was really a flu, but we joke around that there was almost an assembly flu today because nobody, certainly on the Democratic side, wanted to talk, and even some Republicans were trying to lay low.
I reached out to about a dozen members of the Assembly trying to get them on this program tonight, and the fact that none of them are here gives you some idea of how much political power Sheldon Silver has. That's made it somewhat difficult to get reaction to this, but we are getting reaction from notable lawmakers and from some members of the Assembly. First up, one of the bigger names in Democratic politics, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, who says, although the charges announced today are very serious, I want to note that I've always known Shelley Silver to be a man of integrity, and he certainly has due rights, and I think we should let the process play out here. Allegations are allegations, charges are charges, and there has to be a process to determine the outcome. I think separately, it's a true statement that he's done a lot for New York City, and I value that certainly. As for the top Republican in Albany right now, that is State Senate President Dean Skelos. He was somewhat guarded when asked today about Shelley Silver.
Well, I'm sure he'll go through the process, trial at some point, and I'm sure the Speaker's hoping to be acquitted. I mean, it is what it is. The U.S. Attorney has made a decision, and now it moves forward through the judicial process.
As for Republicans, who have been the minority in the state assembly since Richard Nixon was president, they are outraged. Conference leader for the Republicans, Brian Kolb, saying it's imperative Sheldon Silver step down immediately as Speaker of the Assembly. His resignation as Speaker is in the best interest of the Assembly, of the state, and the best way for us to conduct the business that we need to, or that we are elected to do. Staten Island Republican Nicole Malliotakis, the demands of running the chamber and serving taxpayers cannot be compromised by charges of corruption and a judicial proceeding of this magnitude. There's no doubt that New Yorkers desperately need and deserve new leadership of the People's House. Some Democrats in the Assembly slamming Sheldon Silver. Buffalo area Assemblyman Michael Kern saying secret settlements, sex scandals, and now criminal allegations, all of the above should disqualify Silver from keeping his leadership position. Assemblyman Charles Barron, never one to pull punches, saying Silver, should do the right thing. He's a distraction. And yet there were still some Democrats supporting Silver today. Queens Assemblyman Jeff Aubrey saying we are supportive of our Speaker as always. Erie County Democrat Robin Schimminger saying it would be chaos if Silver resigns. I don't see that as an option for the institution. And finally, as Rich mentioned in the setup to this, I spoke with Rob Astorino, who was the Republican nominee for governor in 2014, often mentioned Shelley Silver, often saying that Silver's legal and ethical issues implicated Andrew Cuomo. I asked him about both Shelley Silver and what this means for Andrew Cuomo going forward. Mr. County Executive, your reaction today to the arrest of Sheldon Silver?
I'd like to say I'm shocked, but I'm not. I think this is something that people have expected. Unfortunately, the corruption is rampant in Albany, and I hate to say that, but I did talk about that all last year. We had our own ethics reform agenda that we put forward, starting with term limits. I think the call for term limits is going to get very loud now, and I'm glad. Stripping away the pensions of anyone convicted of corruption. This would be prime example number one. So it's very disheartening, but thankfully Preet Bharara is going after this. I think it's the first domino to fall, not the last.
I'm curious about the timing on this. Mr. Bharara said that we only brought this once we had the investigation that was ready to go. Had this come to light in October or early November, the result of your last election might have been very, very different. We might be talking in a different office today.
It will.
Do you feel like that politics played a role in the timing of any of this?
I don't know. I do know that if the Moreland Commission was looking into this, as apparently it was, specifically on Silver, and Andrew Cuomo pulled the plug on the Moreland Commission, knowing that they were investigating this circumstance under Sheldon Silver, and used that as leverage in negotiations, then the question now is the governor being directly investigated for these kind of crimes as well? Because this is not something that I've said for the first time. This gets to the heart of the problem in Albany right now, and the corruption has got to come to an end. And no matter how high it goes, and this is pretty high. I mean, the Speaker of the Assembly is a very high position, very powerful position, but nobody is away from the arm of the law.
Even if it's never conclusively established, or the governor is never charged that he interfered with or canceled Moreland directly to benefit Sheldon Silver, is there an ethics issue that you think taints the governor going forward, and what should be the recourse, or what should happen with Governor Cuomo if we can in fact learn that dealing with Sheldon Silver did play a role in the decision to quash Moreland?
Well, ultimately the law is the law, and if the governor broke laws, then he's going to have to pay the price. I said then, and I say now, I think there should be a separate state investigation, special prosecutor, to look into what laws, state laws, were potentially broken. Because let's just say that the governor or somebody else did not break federal laws. Are they going to get away with crimes because the state wasn't prosecuting? The Attorney General has already said that that Moreland Commission was completely under the direction of the Attorney General when they deputized all 25 members with subpoena powers and prosecutorial powers. So it was not an independent panel, it was not an advisory panel, and the governor had no right under the law to abolish it. I know that's got to be looked at, and if he did utilize the, disbanding of the Moreland Commission as a way to protect Sheldon Silver or to extort from Sheldon Silver, then those two are big crimes.
And finally, how much of an "I told you so" feeling are you walking through today?
No, it's none of that. I'm really disappointed. I want this state to be cleaned up so desperately because as a state, we're going to continue to be at the bottom of the rankings. We're going to continue to lose our own people. We're going to continue to have businesses leave and not take a chance. What businessman is going to say, I'll do business in New York with the worst taxes, the most corruption. I got to pay people off to get these permits and everything else. Who's going to do business here? That's why they're flocking to Florida and to Texas and other states. So I want this cleaned up. It's what I talked about, and that's not going to end.
Mr. County Executive, thank you very much.
Okay.
No, I didn't say I told you so. No, how crazy of you to assume it. All right, listen, first off, I want to give the caveat. Nobody, well, maybe next to nobody, is saying what the governor knew or didn't know as it relates to Shelley Silver at this point, okay? That day will come. Let me, Dom, start with you, and Andrew, you give your thoughts also. Shelley Silver, a week from today, is he still the speaker?
Of course.
Really?
Of course.
Should he be? Should he be?
But it's not a matter of should he be.
Yeah, but I feel like asking.
Okay,
Yeah.
but we're talking I'm talking now raw politics.
Let's do that first, but then let's answer Andrew's question.
Okay,
first.
so if we want the popcorn answer, of course he should step aside for the good of the people, but that's not realistic. We're talking raw politics. And if you're Shelley Silver, he's got the Michael Grimm problem now. If he resigns, what do you have to bargain with? So Spitzer, when he wasn't charged by the feds, he stepped down. So he had something to bargain with. If you're Shelley Silver, if you're looking at, you're going to have to spend, what, $500,000, if $1 million? It's going to be coming out of your campaign committee. But for legal fees, I mean.
You can also argue, though, that in the case of Spitzer and some of the other ones, the scandal came to light, and then there was an investigation, or was going to be an investigation. In this particular case, this came to light because of the investigator. Preet Bharara, he's been gunning for this from jump. So whether or not he chooses to resign or not, I don't think has any bearing on Preet Bharara as to where he goes.
No, it does. It does. If you're let's face it, Silver is now a notch on Bharara's belt. So it's just a question, frankly, of how you're going to go. Which way do you want to go? Do you want to do this the nice way if you're the U.S. attorney to Silver?
Okay.
Do you want us to step aside and we cut a deal?
But then,
or do you want to go to jail? Which one?
Tonight, though, and we don't know what Mr. Silver, we all agree, the three of us here, that of anybody that I've ever covered in Albany, he knows where more bodies are buried than anybody else, okay? And unlike maybe, and I'm not trying to be harsh, Joe Bruno, Shelley's sophisticated in that the most shocking thing for a lot of people covering this maybe isn't that he did it, although that shocked a lot of folks, but that he would do something where you didn't have to do it illegally, right, to still profit from. He could have done things legally if he declared the income, if he didn't do it with some of the shell comps. He could have done this.
No. Right.
You can't legally extort, but I'm just saying.
The income that he didn't report, he couldn't, if you believe the allegation, he couldn't finesse that in a legal way.
Okay.
It would have raised red flags.
My only point, though, is he will not go quietly into the good night. Will Sheldon Silver?
Depends.
We'll agree on that.
Depends.
I will say, though, where I part comfort from Dominic is day one, you only had a couple people, Andrew, Democrats that were willing to cross him and say he's got to go. If that becomes a chorus tomorrow and by Monday, and I think it will, okay, then
I don't.
Then at what point can he really sustain this if he's seen here as the cancer?
The guy's been the Assembly Speaker since 1994. I mean, everybody.
Because everybody's been afraid to cross
There is
him.
not a Democrat in the Assembly that doesn't owe something to Shelley Silver at this point. And he's got so many markers on so many people. You're absolutely right. The only way that he gives up the job is if every Democrat starts to walk away from him and he's persona non grata. But what are the odds that that's going to happen, considering how many markers he holds, and also what happens if he survives this? Do you want to be a Democrat in the Assembly with Shelley Silver still there?
Can we agree to this much? The U.S. Attorney is a political animal. Preet Bharara, if you watched this press conference today, if you looked at the indictment he laid down, the language he chose to use, does anybody think we're not going to hear mysteriously a couple leaks over the weekend, a little bit more juicy details as to how this all went down? Of course
you're going to hear everything, but Democrats are not going to abandon him. Shelley knows where all the bodies are buried. Shelley, frankly, has dirt on every member of the Assembly. They're not going to. They're too afraid of him. They're not going to abandon him. Quietly, but sourced information on background, but not publicly.
I know we're tight on time. Obviously, if Bharara goes after Cuomo and says that I've got information that he did Moreland here, he quashed Moreland specifically to protect or to extort something out of Shelley Silver, that's big trouble for the governor.
But that's hard to prove.
No, I know it's hard.
Very hard.
And I wouldn't hold your breath.
But does the timing of all of this, is there an ethics problem for Governor Cuomo?
I think it's a perception problem.
I mean,
I think right now there's already a perception problem.
Especially now that he's got federal charges against Shelley Silver. I mean, the sense that it really looks pretty bad that Cuomo was either protecting or putting the screws to Shelley Silver when he quashed Moreland. So how does this reflect on Cuomo? How does he get through all
this? Well, let's
be
clear. He's got through an election 5 months ago, whatever it is, 3 months ago. Whatever.
Feels like 5 months.
Yeah, feels like 5 months. He doesn't have something that he's running for years. He'll weather this unless, as you said, there's a direct quid pro quo. I don't see what he needs to extort out of Shelley Silver. I've heard people say that today.
But if he protected him, if he quashed Moreland to protect him?
But you got to prove it. And I think that's going to be a lot harder than proving the money trail that leads to Shelley Silver. And this is the first thing, trust me, of where this goes from here is anybody's guess. But this, I believe, on a positive level, will force Albany to be cleaned up in a real systemic way, unlike some of the cosmetic stuff in the past. And I already see these guys already disbelieving. All right, when we come back, you may have seen this video. We're going to go to New Jersey. 2 police officers on leave following a deadly shooting during a traffic stop. You're going to see the exchange, but the question is, how much has Staten Island and Ferguson, Missouri played into how we look at these kind of exchanges? Stay with us.